Let's make a zigzag hat. I used a ball of off-white yarn, a ball of brown yarn, my 6mm hook, and I also used a pair of scissors. You can use your other accessories if you'd like your stitch markers, but you can also, if you have the bare minimum, basically you can work with that. And yeah, I started by making a magic knot. As you can see, it's very easy. And if you'd like to know how to make a circle with crochet, you just need to know how to make a magic knot. With mine, I did 8 single crochet stitches and I built on that. You can use more or less depending on what you're making. And since I'm making a bucket hat, 8 is enough for standard size. I'll make a more detailed video on how to make the magic knot. I know that a lot of the things I started with creating are bucket hats, and you basically need to know how to make a magic knot for you to create any bucket hat. So yeah, that's my little circle, and now I'm building on this. From here, the next round should be 2 stitches on each stitch. So I'm using single crochet all through, and I'm gonna, as you can see, I'm stitching 2 single crochets in each and every stitch. So this is the second round. Now make sure you do that, and at the end of it you should have 16 stitches. When I first started making magic knots, I was very intimidated by it. But once I got the hang of it, to be honest, that's one of the easiest concepts. And I love how such a simple thing creates such intricate designs, because you can make so much with circles. So the reason why I used single crochet in this hat is because with single crochet it's easier to follow patterns. So if I'm making a zigzag pattern, I know exactly where my zigzag starts and ends. It's easier to follow through with a line, especially when you're going in circles with single crochet, because it every single stitch creates such a small surface area, so it's basically easy to make a pattern out of single crochet, depending also with the pattern that you're going for, because this reasoning may not work with all the patterns. It specifically goes for this pattern that I'm going for. So now I'm introducing the brown yarn, and this is how I did it. I didn't create a magic knot this time. I just created a normal knot. And yeah, I started with the brown yarn on the third row, and on the third row I'm skipping 1 stitch and having two stitches on every other stitch. So yes, if you watch closely, the brown came in where I'm doing the 2 stitches. So I started with 2 stitches for the brown. This gives me more surface to work with. On the 4th row, you'll see exactly what I'm saying once we get there. But yeah, I actually really enjoyed making this. And fun fact, I wasn't actually going for a zigzag pattern. When I made this, what I had in mind was a wavy pattern that I made sometime last year, and a lot of people asked me for the pattern, and when I made that hat, I legit had no pattern in mind. I just made it out of my head, so I didn't remember how I made it. I don't know how to make a pattern about that hat. If you know what I'm talking about, it's the orange and blue wavy hat. So because so many people asked, I actually decided to make a tutorial with the same concept that I had, because I remember the concept but I don't remember the exact thing I did. So I made this hat having the wavy hat in mind, but I went with too much precision, and instead of making a wavy pattern, I made a zigzag pattern, which I'm literally not mad about. It's one of the best accidents that ever happened, to be honest. So yeah, that's why I love creating. You make accidents so cool. Nobody will think it was an accident. So back to the tutorial. On the fourth row, I added 2 stitches on every third stitch. On the fifth round, I increased stitches on every fourth stitch. That means on every fourth stitch, I do 2 single crochets. And you go building the sixth row every fifth stitch. On the seventh row, increase on every sixth stitch. On the eighth row, increase on every seventh stitch. And that's how you build a circle. So basically what I did with the brown is I added the first round that we did with brown was 2 stitches, if you remember, and we built from that. The next round was 3. Don't worry if they don't exactly look how you expect them to look at first. They may not. And so I went increasing like that. The next round was 4, but I separated them with white in between. Remember, you're increasing as you go, so you'll have room to increase the white in between the brown. So the next round was still 4, so I stuck with 2. Each line was 2 strands of brown, so that is why it's remained 4 for a while, until the time where I was moving the brown lines to touch each other at the end. As you can see, they separated already, so at some point you'll want the lines to go back together. So that is where I went increasing the brown again from 4 on each round. So I use this concept to create lines on all types of circles that I'm making, or anything that I want to have lines that is circular, because it might be a bit hard to make lines on circles when you're crocheting. And yeah, you can see at this point it doesn't exactly look even. It's not supposed to, but you'll see exactly you'll see the vision basically, so you'll know if you're doing the right thing or not. So yeah, I made this with a couple of hours. I used, let's say, 6 hours give or take, because I was taking breaks in between. It's not supposed to take you this long unless you're doing it for the first time. Like, this was my first time to make a zigzag hat, so and I was actually trying to recreate something, so that is why it took me this long. But if you're faster, it can take you a bit less time, and if it takes you more, don't worry about it, because at the end of the day, the goal is creating. So as you go, the circle in between, as you can see, there's a little circle in between. It's gonna get bigger, and if you created the magic knot the right way, you should have a bit of string left in the middle. If you pull that string, you're gonna reduce that size, so don't cut that string. You'll need it for doing that, but it doesn't get much bigger anyway, so it shouldn't be enough to worry you. Also, I take lotion breaks in between, because yeah, sometimes crochet just makes your hands dry and you need to moisturize. At this point, you can choose to create so many different patterns. So yes, you can play around with it. You don't exactly need to go with the same exact pattern that I went with, but you can build so many things on this. Just look at that. And the circle may not be all the way circular at some point. This happens, and you shouldn't be worried as long as you're doing the right thing. As long as you're counting your stitches right, then you shouldn't be worried, even if your circle doesn't look circular. Oh, just look at that. It's so beautiful. And yeah, that's the inside out. So for the yarn not to peek all the way all the time, I just tuck it in when I'm crocheting. I don't know if you can see, I'm tucking in the other color as I use the other color so that it doesn't peek through. So yeah, that's how you keep it neat the whole time. Also, this is low-key a warning. Anything that has multiple colors, when you're working with multiple colors, your yarn will always mix together. So just make sure to keep intertwining it before it gets too bad. And you'll notice that I do that all the time. But this should not discourage you. Just look at that. So my sister came to play, and we just started doing the Fenty challenge. She was having too much fun with this. And yeah, and so back to crochet. This is where I'm at. And once I finished making the circle, I stopped increasing on the 10th round. And from there, you're just gonna go with the same number of stitches on each round. No increasing, no decreasing. And you'll start to realize the brown becomes kind of like a flower, a 4-petal flower. So once you get to that point where it starts looking like a flower, you start decreasing the space between the lines of the brown. And there's also more, you want to create more lines, so you'll add new swatches of brown in between, as you can see, and basically repeat the same thing over and over until you get to the end of the heart. So that is how you create the pattern. And I know it may sound difficult, but when you're doing it, it'll just make sense. So I don't know if you can see exactly what I'm talking about. The brown already looks like a flower. It doesn't look as even as right now. It's still in the process, but it should look something of the sort. And that's only if you're going with the same exact style that I'm going for. But you can always choose to play around with it. At the end of the day, if you're creating for yourself, just do a little experiments. That's the only way to grow. So this yarn, this cream white yarn, is something that I had used before. And when we talk about crochet being sustainable, it means I can take out a project that I made, let's say last year, and just roll it into a big ball like this and use it to make something else. So that is what we mean by sustainable, because it's very reusable. I don't need to do anything extra for me to use the same yarn multiple times. And yeah, you can just make something, undo it, make something with the same yarn until you feel like this is exactly what you wanted. So yeah, you don't get to waste any yarn. Once you buy a hook, unless you lose it, you won't need to replace your hook unless you need to buy a new size or you want to try some different kind of padding. But it's a very quote-unquote cheap hobby, because you do not need a lot to start. And if you're looking for something to do on your free time, It's a little bit time consuming, but yeah, that's basically everything. So yeah, our hook goes for around 200 Kenya shillings, and that's around $1 and some cents, and if you're comparing to dollars. And one ball of yarn goes for around 150 shillings, which is like $1, and literally that's all you need to make one bucket hat. And a pair of scissors, which you can get lying around your house. So yeah, if you want to start, this is basically your sign. You don't need a lot to start, and everything is very easily accessible. Once you stop increasing, you're gonna see it's still gonna look like a circle. Don't be worried. It's taking shape soon enough. And I don't know if you can see that the edge is already starting to curl. So that is the whole point of stopping the decrease. You don't want your circle to get any bigger. You now want it to be sort of a bowl. As you can see, it now looks like a bowl. At this point, I literally wanted to stop and let it stay as is. It's so beautiful. I wanted to just have it as decoration in my room or something. But I got to see it through my boy. So yeah, I went through it then, and I'm not disappointed, to be honest. I love it as a hat as well. And yeah, in case I try to do this again with different colors, I will do something along the wavy side for my people who asked for the tutorial that led to this accident. So yeah, I'll still make that tutorial for you, because now at least I know exactly what the difference is and why this hat did not turn out as the wavy hat that I expected it to turn out as. And you can see that I'm unraveling at some point. So sometimes when you're doing experiments, you get to figure out things as you go. And this was me realizing that I missed some stitches, so I just unraveled and went back and redid it. So you're gonna end up doing this a lot, especially if you're a beginner, and as you can see, I'm doing it as well. So don't be ashamed to unravel your work and redo it. It's literally just learning as you go. So once you get to, for me, I used 10 more rows for the not increasing rounds. But once you get to the point where you feel that you're comfortable with the size, you can try to fit it at this point to try and see if it fits. You're gonna start increasing once again. But then, before you start increasing, as you can see, I only stitched the outer stitch, the outer yarn. I didn't stitch on the entire yarn. So yes, basically it's the same thing you do when you're doing ribbing, but only for this one transition line. That is to create the curve for the bucket hat, where the hat starts flaring, where it stops touching your head. From here, you're gonna increase according to how you want your hat to be. If you'd like it to be more of a straightforward bucket hat, you're gonna increase on every other round. So you're still gonna go with the same pattern that you're increasing on the circle earlier. For example, if your last increase was on the 10th round and you're increasing on every 9th stitch, now you're gonna go as if you're on the 11th round, increasing on every 10th stitch, and then you skip the next round, and then on your 12th round you increase on every 11th stitch, you skip the 13th round, you don't increase, and then on your 14th round you increase on every 13th stitch. So that is if you want a classic bucket hat like this. But if you're going for more of a ruffled look, I know you know the ruffle hats, I'm going to show you how to do that on a different video, but you just need to do more increases for you to get more ruffles and less increases to get less ruffles. That's basically how it works. And this works on ruffles of all kind. If you're doing any project that requires ruffles, you just increase more to get more ruffles, and vice versa. So you're gonna stop where you feel like that's enough, and depending on the length that you'd prefer. So I use the brown yarn to do the very last round, and I don't know, I just love this finishing a bit more. And yeah, I love how it turned out. This is basically the end. I'm moving in the last thread of yarn. So one thing I love about bucket hats, you don't need to do a lot when it comes to the finishing. Basically it's all done. And yeah, I'm so proud of this. Go to my TikTok and see how I styled it. I really love how it turned out.